This year is going to go down in Formula 1 history for many reasons, but none more so than its unpredictability. When the year starts with the biggest driver news since Nico retired or even Seb ditching Red Bull, you know it's going to be a pretty crazy year in the driver market. And if it was just the drivers that were experiencing the silly season, it would already be a pretty incredible year. But the fact that the drama's tendrils have left no corner of the paddock untouched has made this season one to remember. In our recent video, we delivered the update from Italy that Adrian Newey was in talks with Aston Martin, and we thought that it could be the biggest news of the summer break. An hour after we set the video to upload, however, we were given the biggest dose of Sod's Law that we have ever experienced, as another bombshell was dropped by the Italian press, as it appears that Adrian Newey is not the only Red Bull man that Aston Martin are looking to snag, and if their reports are to be believed, it may well be that they could both be there as early as the new regulations. Want to know why Max Verstappen could be set to make a shock move to Aston Martin? We normally put some kind of quip here in the script, but the question is mental enough on its own. And stick around, because another factor has been revealed as to why Adrian Newey has turned his back on Ferrari, and it seems that the Scuderia's pride may well have caused them to miss out. If Newey was to go anywhere, it would be Ferrari. If Max was to go anywhere, it would be Mercedes. Claims like these seem to be aging like fine cartons of milk, as Autosprint dropped its second bombshell of this week. Not only is Adrian Newey reportedly in talks with the Silverstone team, but negotiations are reportedly underway between Aston Martin and Max Verstappen's camp. Not proposed, not speculated, actively underway. Now, immediately you may be asking, why would Verstappen leave Red Bull and join a project that is struggling so much at the moment? And all of the answers seem to be pointing towards the time at which he would be joining. The world has pretty much accepted that Max Verstappen, unless something incredible occurs, which given the year that they are having we can't exactly count out, will be a Red Bull driver for the final year of the current regulations. The Dutchman has a contract until 2028, however F1 contracts have as many holes in them as a hedgehog's pillow. Whether it be exit clauses, loopholes, or the driver's agents using them as toilet paper, contracts aren't exactly as binding as they first appear to be. There are multiple exit clauses reportedly in Max Verstappen's contract, from the one tied to Helmut Marko to performance clauses about championship position, and given the turbulent time faced by Red Bull on and off track at the moment, it's difficult to assume that all of them will be met. The contract was signed at a time where Red Bull's reign coming to a sharp end was inconceivable, and the reality faced by the team behind the scenes was equally unthinkable, so it's safe to say that the unprecedented times may give Max the ability to walk away if he so desires. So why may he desire to do so? Well, ignoring all the off-track drama, his dad's hatred for Horner, and the downturn of performance this year, there's a pretty big reason that Max may be tempted to another team, and that is the Red Bull Powertrains project. 2026 will be the first year that Red Bull will be running their own in-house engine project, with their dominant partnership with Honda coming to an end in pretty controversial fashion. Originally, the partnership was ending due to Honda bowing out of the sport back in 2021, still assisting Red Bull after their initial pullback. However, it was then revealed that they had agreed a deal with Aston Martin to be their in-house engine supplier. Given the nature of the new regulations, getting the engine right immediately will dictate the early years, never mind months, of the championship under the new regulations. And while Red Bull have been gaining experience with the hand-me-downs given over by Honda, they're by no means a proven product when it comes to producing a brand new engine package. With OEMs like Honda, Ferrari and Mercedes all with proven track records, with Mercedes in particular demonstrating the importance of nailing an engine off the bat, then it's hard to believe that Red Bull will be as effective at the dawn of the new regulations. It's no surprise that, of any regulations that Red Bull would dominate, it's the aero-oriented regulation switch-up that allowed them to do so, and questions surrounding just how effective the Red Bull Powertrains project will be in the new regulations aren't unwarranted due to the team's inexperience. That may well bring up the question then, why not Mercedes? Well, that comes down to a few things, and more than anything else, it comes down to trajectory, preferences, and allegiances. In terms of trajectory, Mercedes are very much on a good path and are set to be challengers next year, as well as likely to be at the sharp end of things come the new regulations. However, they are not the only team that is set for a strong showing and have some major flaws in regards to attracting Verstappen. Aston Martin, as well as other teams with experienced OEMs, will certainly share this advantage with Mercedes, plus they will have a brand new state-of-the-art wind tunnel facility, unlike Red Bull who decided not to go ahead with theirs, as well as currently going through a massive infrastructural overhaul in both facilities and team personnel in the build-up to the new regulations. A fresh start at a team with these facilities is already a pretty tempting offer, but this isn't the only advantage at Aston Martin when compared to their Brackley competitors. The fatal flaw we mentioned about Mercedes before are both the team dynamic as well as the drivers he would be partnered next to. At Mercedes, he would be expected to be part of their no-blame culture as well as play nicely with a teammate. Just remember who we are talking about here. Verstappen's teammate would either be the incumbent George Russell, who is already well established at the team and will do whatever he can to challenge for the #1 spot at the team, potentially making things uncomfortable, or it would be Kimi Antonelli, supposedly the next prodigal racer, who will also want to punch up against Max. Either way, Max likely wouldn't want to play nicely and wouldn't appreciate the expectation to do so, regardless of who he is up against. I mean, there's a reason that Red Bull didn't immediately snatch up Sainz in that second seat after all. Compare this to Aston Martin, where he will be paired up with an aging, although still capable, Fernando Alonso, who if he is an issue likely won't be one for long, or will be up against Lance Stroll, who wouldn't be nearly as much of a threat to Max as either driver option at Mercedes. With Lance moving over to WEC still being an option down the line, and Fernando not necessarily sticking around after his current contract, the Aston Martin driver situation would suit Max for a T. As well as all of this, Aston Martin will potentially be housing two vital components to Max's dominance, that being Adrian Newey and Honda powertrains, as well as familiar faces like Dan Fallows and exciting acquisitions like Enrico Cardile. If Max wants an engine manufacturer he knows, trusts, and already has a working relationship with, then Honda is a massive bargaining chip for Aston Martin, as well as the seemingly endless funding put into the team that could go towards a pretty hefty signing bonus for Verstappen if he chooses to move to the Silverstone team, compared to the unproven Red Bull powertrains, who will likely see the same amount of instability and political discourse within the team if their current track record is anything to go by. Well, Honda makes a far safer bet. So familiar faces, a productive work environment that isn't tearing itself apart, and not having to work with a boss who your dad absolutely hates, it seems like a pretty sweet deal for Max, right? Red Bull may still bounce back this year or next year, but if there is any team that can turn Max's head for the new regulations, then it seems that Aston Martin has all the components to do so. Speaking of turning heads, it seems like the reason Newey turned his gaze away from Ferrari has now been revealed, with it coming to light that Newey was expecting far more from the team than they were willing to offer. Now, this isn't in regards to money as rumored a couple of months back, but rather to do with his power within the team. It seems that Fred Vasseur saw some of Newey's requests as encroaching on his role as team principal, with Autosprint reporting that he was requesting a right of veto on hiring new engineers, the allocation of roles, and the acceptance of technical partnerships. Given Ferrari's track record in recent years, we can't blame Newey for trying to ensure that he has some control in creating a stable working environment, and it seems that Ferrari's unwillingness to let the engineer be more than just a token mascot who will design the car has turned Newey off the thought of working for the Scuderia. As discussed in our recent video, it was likely going to be a tricky enough environment for Newey to work in anyway, but with his requests to have a say in who he works alongside being declined, well, this makes perfect sense that Newey would walk away from the idea of working at Maranello. Whether he will be joined at Aston Martin by Max Verstappen is yet to be seen, but as we've come to the conclusion of this video, it's clear that stranger things have certainly happened.